Good day, listeners, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today we have JayneAM, and JayneAM has created a fantastic film, really enjoyable snapshot of King's Cross. It's titled Bohemian King's Cross Swan Song, and I have JayneAM here with me, and she's going to tell us a little bit about this fantastic film she's put together in the hopes that you yourself will look it up and find it. So thank you so much for having a chat with me today, Jayne.
Okay, thank you for interviewing me.
It's an absolute pleasure, and what you've created here in Bohemian King's Cross Swan Song is just absolutely fantastic. The way you have brought a culture, an aspect that really is an icon of Australian identity. You've captured it in its history and you've condensed it into this documentary film, and it's such joy. I've got to see the advanced screening of it. But for our listeners, would you like to tell them a little bit about Bohemian King's Cross Swan Song?
Okay, look, what I'll do is I'll start with where it's been screened, because we've got an exhibition at the Roxy for the Wollongong Art Group, and that's at the very end of that exhibition on the 16th at 1 o'clock. I'm going to be doing a screening of that particular film. The film is a documentary. It's 30 minutes long. But it actually took me 20 years to make. So
Wow.
There's a long story behind that.
Well, certainly, and I'd love to hear some of that story. So the film is a true documentary about real people who have lived real lives in this very iconic part of Australia. And of course, we all know that King's Cross has connotations that are somewhat taboo and unsavoury, but you've managed to capture the magic, the purity, the beauty of these creative individuals in their unique moment. So we have cabaret, we have poetry, we have visual arts,
Theatre.
body arts, and of course this film is also a tribute, a memorandum, not only to that time and that place, but maybe also the people that were in the film. And tell us a little bit about that.
All right, well, the people who were in the film were my peer group, but at the time I thought, because they were very accomplished they were sort of like punk artists, post the hippie, whatever one calls the hippie generation. There was the punk generation, and a lot of these artists were in that world, and were some of them were connected to David Bowie, and in fact,
Real rebel-minded people, eh?
They were
willing to challenge the status quo, would you say?
Absolutely, and they were recognised internationally, but not in Australia. And as a result of that, nobody would support their work, and the only people who would mentor them were the criminals of King's Cross. Abe Saffron was pretty much the one that supported the arts.
Was he a bit of
And
a
these
monster
artists.
or something, was he?
Well, the artists, those particular artists didn't see him as a monster, but he was painted as a monster. He had a reputation for being a gangster, and a lot of these artists whose work was very left subcultural. A lot of that work that they were producing was way too radical for the time.
Which is actually fantastic, and I suppose that's exactly why a film like this needed to be created, because so often and too often we gloss over the essence of what makes something, and King's Cross, in its swan song, as we know, it's changed a lot. There's a lot of money there now. The streets are being cleaned up. It's a different type of place. But in this period of time that this film is capturing, which is from like the 1970s through the 1990s, and the individuals that made the place what it is, as you were saying, with that culture and with that aspect of cool, grungy, taboo. And again, listeners, it's why you should go see this film, to get a little visual window into these amazing people and their bravery, their courage to be creative in the face of, the force of social norms, essentially. So as an artist, yourself, as a filmmaker, as a creative, tell us a little bit about the filmmaking process, and why King's Cross, and why film? And why you?
Well, I've been asking myself why film for a long time, because I'm pretty technophobic actually, but it just, sometimes one has to master the medium that one probably challenges one the most. So, and that particular medium for me was film. I started off my filmmaking career, you could say, started off by being a student with Actively Radical TV, and I worked with community television, and I was taught how to make documentaries at the time of the 9/11 debacle, global debacle. So that inspired me to take up documentary making. Before that, I'd made one film, and it ended up in the Melbourne Fringe Festival and Sydney Mardi Gras.
That's Land of the Warthogs.
That was the Land of the Warthogs.
Fantastic
I'll be
piece.
showing that one at Vocable Poetry on the 21st of September, 6:30 onwards, and that's in South Lismore, and that's the week after I'm screening Bohemian King's Cross film.
Swan Song, which is on the 16th of September
That's
at 1 p.m.
right.
at the Roxy Gallery, which we very much urge you to come along to, because it really is just, it's a nice film to watch. You know, it's very engaging, it's very captivating. As a filmmaker, you should be very proud of yourself, and listeners, I strongly urge you, if you can find the time, and of course, if you can't make it to the Roxy Gallery, I do believe that Jayne has a website which will have the video posted on it for a short while.
Well, I'm not actually posting the entire video, because when you've just produced a film, you generally kind of want the public to come. The teaser's there. But my website's JayneAM.com.au, and it's a conglomeration of a lot of things that I've done over my life. I'm also a poet and a published poet, and the website was created for my published poetry initially, and then it sort of became the gallery of all the work I'd done over my life, because I thought, well, why not throw it all in one spot? So that's when I realised that I had a bit of a mixture of different things happening. So somebody called me a multidisciplinary artist, and I thought, well,
why not take that label?
That's what I'll take on.
You know, considering talking King's Cross, we try to avoid labels at all costs. But at the same time, multimedia artists, and again, it is a tribute to the way you make films. It's a fantastic piece. It captures the history, the beauty, the culture, the taboo, the creativity of these fantastic people, and of course, and sadly, in some respects, it's a memoriam to these people and to this culture, because some of these people are no longer with us.
Well, the most recent one died this year, and I was aware that through a friend of mine that they were live streaming his funeral, so I was very upset, because he was a commentator. His name was Fabian, and he was one of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence that was known has been forefront of a lot of the social commentary for the gay Mardi Gras since they began. So he's at his funeral. I sent to the pastor an invite to come to the gallery, and not the particular gallery in Roxy, but the one in Sydney, because the Sydney gallery, the Tap Gallery, is the one where most of those artists used to
display their work.
Well, they connected through that one, as well as the Piccolo Bar. So there's certain places in Sydney where a lot of those Bohemian artists kept in touch with each other, and the Tap Gallery was one of them. So the exhibition that I'm having in Sydney will be a tribute not only to the artists, but it will give the friends and family of the artists an opportunity to talk further about their loved ones. So it's kind of like a memoriam to the Bohemian artists.
To the Bohemian artists, and to the culture itself, which I think it's a beautiful thing. I really like that. I really would urge anyone out there listening to check out this film. It's amazing how influential that scene was on Australian culture. I myself was only watching a television show on the ABC the other day. I think it's called In Our Blood, right? And it's a movie about queer people and AIDS, and right in there, the first character is basically set on the Sister of Perpetual Indulgence.
Yep.
So you can absolutely see within that how it has influenced Australian culture. So this film, and you being on the ground of that, is just a fantastic tribute to the people who are involved, to yourself as a filmmaker.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for having this chat with us today. And
thank you.
Listeners, check it out. Go to JayneAM.com.au.
Well, that's where you'll see the teaser. But if you come up to the Roxy, if you want to see the whole film, 16th. It's only the one showing. Then it'll be in Sydney, and then after that, I'll be looking at film festivals. So we'll see what happens from then on.
Thank you so much for the tap today,
Thank
Jayne.
you.
Really,
okay.
It was a pleasure.